Welcome to Subject of Blackout. My name is Timo, and with me, as always, from the Name Taken podcast is Mike. Mike, how you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Mike,
my name is Killing Word.
Yeah. As you'll see from my name, my name is still Suit, a killing word.
Well done.
And Mike, we saw Denis Villeneuve's 2021 version of the first half of the first book of Dune, the movie, part 1.
Right. Dune, First Blood, part 1.
Mike, what were your thoughts on New Dune or Noon?
I mean, okay, so we've been hearing about this movie for a while.
Decades.
I've read the book. I know about Jodorowsky's Dune. And I've read some of the reviews that were like really dramatic, really obnoxious and dramatic. It was either just sort of like it's pointless and joyless, or like it's the paragon of new science fiction. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I wanted to come. I wanted to come in being angry at the hype. I'm like, this isn't Avengers Endgame for me, but I don't have the same personal relationship. I think I enjoyed it.
I am happy to hear. I was a little concerned that perhaps you would be off-put by some of the directorial decisions that took place in the movie that we can get to later. But I too thought this was a very good movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it was, I think visually stunning. I think it was a very, very beautiful film as far as cinematography, shot composition. I think the color palette was a little dull, but still beautiful nonetheless. And a movie filled all over the place with beautiful actors and actresses looking beautiful. So, yeah, big fan of the visuals. I mean, it's hard to talk about this movie without talking about how it's clearly the first third of something. Yes. So obviously the movie kind of just ends sort of where you do not expect it.
It ends. So I expected it to end here because this is a key stopping point in the book. This is like the end of the point in the book. So it ended. I was pleasantly surprised by where it ended because of its faithfulness to the source material.
Okay.
Which I have to say was pretty consistent throughout. It was fairly consistent with the book.
From everything I've heard, and Denis Villeneuve, the director, has said this many times, and it can be put on by many an actor or director that this is something that he loves. The Dune book and Dune series. And from everything I've heard, including what you just said, he showed that love by attention to detail of the Frank Herbert original novel. And that's something that you like to see. That's what who's the Hobbit director?
Oh.
That guy.
That guy.
Yeah.
That guy. How do we not remember that
fucking
name?
Kiwi. Peter Jackson.
Guy. Peter Jackson. Jeez. Film podcast, everyone. Peter Jackson.
You know, that is something that he brought to the Lord of the Rings movies, was a fidelity to the books that people didn't think someone could bring to a film adaptation. And obviously we've only seen Dune Part 1 out of 2 parts, 3 parts, who knows? 27 parts? We don't know.
Yeah, I guess it depends on if they're. I mean, Dune was a. Dune is not like modern literature, like modern sci-fi or fantasy in the sense where it's like someone sets out to write like 12 fucking books, and then they die. It was it was a standalone novel, and then Frank Herbert wrote successive novels, but they're all kind of like standalone novels. They reuse some of the same characters, but they don't like you're not dependent on future novels to inform your reading of like Dune
Yeah.
or the second book, Dune Messiah. So
And much like what Apple is currently releasing with Foundation, is it's not something that started off much smaller than a simple novel, where it was very much like there aren't main characters because there were little snippets coming out and just ideas that Asimov was having, as you've related to me in the past, which then got turned into a book, which then he would revisited with prequels and sequels. So yeah, this Dune was a fully formed idea, and that fully formed idea shines through this first movie pretty well. Where I read an argument where someone said that this movie doesn't have any new ideas.
yeah,
But
that's okay.
I think what I felt was that the ideas that were in the book were what intrigued Denis Villeneuve to want to attempt this film or this series of films. And I think this movie is mostly set up for what the book entails about leadership, about messianic figures, about movements overtaking leadership. All that stuff is second half stuff. So we'll see if maybe that one feels more like a movie with an idea. However, I, much like you, really enjoyed this movie.
I think one of the things that was going to be a challenge to translate from the original book was that there's a certain tone. There's like a je ne sais quoi where it feels weird, alienating and menacing. The book does. There's something that feels kind of off and foreboding. And while some of that is relieved by um, the assassination of the Duke
Mm-hmm.
and the whole betrayal of the Atreides family, there remains throughout the rest of the book this just sort of like sense of oddness, just sort of like strangeness about everything. And I think that was really translated well in the tone
Yeah.
of this movie. It doesn't shy away from being weird. And that also means like visually weird.
Yeah. I mean, you get some visual weirdness from, let's say, the Harkonnens, whatever,
Yeah.
however that's pronounced. They're obviously weird. The Baron Harkonnen, with his ability to, I don't know, cybernetically float around all creepily,
Yeah.
is
This is like weird.
is
This is
definitely
weird
weird.
stuff. Yeah.
Obviously, something that's taken directly from the book, and it's also in the David Lynch version, but just a very modern, cold, almost metallic aesthetic for their environment, and the Baron's sort of get up and technology. Very, very weird. I thought it was really cool that what are they, empaths or whatever, the number cruncher guys,
Yes.
that in the David Lynch version, their whole mouths were just stained red from what I'm assuming is a spice based substance. But instead here they just have like a little red strip on their lips, and
Yeah.
so you can tell that on either side, the Atreides and the Harkonnens,
Yeah.
they both have one, but those guys look extremely different. And it was also super weird that their eyes just kind of go white when they're doing their like internal computing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of, I mean, they don't have helicopters and jets. They have spaceships which fly who knows how, like magically expanding balloons.
Spice.
Spice.
Yeah.
And they also don't have like helicopters, so they have some,
Dragonflies.
yeah, they have dragonfly. Like everything about it is just like weird and cool.
Yeah.
in equal measure, and that is something. Dune by David Lynch had a lot of weird shit, a lot of pustules, um, and a lot of big fake eyebrows, but it didn't have really like matching that weird with the cool that they're able to capture in this version.
How did you feel about Oscar Isaac not being in a traditional Oscar Isaac role?
Uh, I mean, define a traditional Oscar Isaac role. Is that like rebellious scamp?
Yeah, kind of a rebellious scamp. Yeah.
Um,
Or like reclusive tech entrepreneur who gets murdered by naked
he's
cyborgs.
certainly not that in this. He's neither of
Yeah.
those things in this movie. I thought he uh, was really good in it. I think everyone was really good. I heard a few complaints about Jason Momoa. I don't agree with them. I thought he was good in
Yeah, I
the
thought it was
film.
fine. Yeah.
You know, a big lug should play a big lug, and he
Yeah.
did
Yeah, he was
believably
fine.
and capably. Um, I but back to your point, like I felt the leadership of Duke Leto like coming through his character. Like when he takes Timothy Chalamet and is like, "Hey, I wasn't sure about my path either, but if you don't want to be the next Duke, like you'll be everything that you needed to be, and that's my son." It's just
Yeah,
like,
that's like weirdly chill.
yeah, I was just like, wow, that's
Like,
that.
you want to be a dentist?
but we make toys. You're an elf. What are you doing?
Glad you picked up on that.
But
He's got a beard and everything. It's right
it's
there.
funny
All right.
in the he does have a beard. In the 1984 version of this movie, like you get acknowledgement of Duke Leto's in superior leadership by someone saying like he cares more about the men than the space. Intriguing. Maybe he is a good leader. And it's like it's so over the top, it's kind of
Yeah.
annoying. But when you
Someone
get
turns
this
to the
scene,
camera.
yeah, when you get this scene of just a man and his son and just saying like you don't have to be like me if that's not what you want, like we'll find another way around it. It's like you're more important to me than this stuff. And that's the exact same philosophy of the people are more important to me than this stuff. And I think that sort of connection works so much better than David Lynch going, "We're going to record this in ADR." Like I think it's tremendous what they did to show and not tell a bunch of stuff that David Lynch just decided to do in ADR.
I think too that there's a challenge that Oscar Isaac had also in the kind of like delivery of the character, because the fate of Duke Leto is not really a surprise. He very early on in both the book and the movie, the audience is led to understand that he's sort of he got a time limit. And even the Duke himself is of the understanding that he's sort of kind of moving towards his own death, like inevitably. So being able to develop a character where the audience knows they're going to have to part with that character, but they still feel invested in them anyway,
Yeah.
I think is challenging.
Well, and I think at some point, specifically in this version of Dune, like Leto basically says, like, "Yo, the Emperor giving us Dune at this point doesn't make any sense." And
Yeah,
when they
he
come
hates us.
to their home world of Caladan to like sort of offer up Arrakis, them being, of course, the Empire. Like Duke accepts it because he's like,
What are you gonna do?
we always accept, we'll always be at the call of the Empire. But in private, he's like, this is, I can feel that this is a trap. I don't know how this is a trap. I don't know how it's going to get sprung, but this is nefarious in some kind. And that's why he's trying to ramp up so quickly, because he want, another thing that this version does so much better than the 84 version is I got a sense of what the actual Harkonnen / Empire plan is and why they need Arrakis to do it, which I didn't understand from the previous movie. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my takeaway from this film, is that on Caladan, the air and space and seas are so controlled by House Atreides that they can't be fucked with. You can't attack them on their home planet. You can't attack them through air or through sea. And where they are weakest is, on ground warfare. And this is a society where most weapons have been reduced back to blades and daggers because everybody's got these shields. So hand-to-hand combat is going to be dramatically important. And he wants to use Arrakis as a point to build up that strength, that sand strength that he talks about. And the reason that the Harkonnens and Empire give him Arrakis is because that also stretches them out. Now, the same people who were just on Caladan have to be both on Caladan and Arrakis. And so they're stretched thin, and this is the perfect time to attack them in a ground war. Totally something I've never gotten from the 84 version of Dune. And it makes everything, which is a convoluted setup, that these people dominate this world, they leave the world at the behest of the Empire, and then come right back to the world. And it doesn't really make logical sense until it was framed that way in this particular film.
Yeah, and I think that's really how it's presented to in the books, that sort of like aristocratic gameplay.
Yeah, and it's that attention to the detail, again, which I think shines through for the director's clear infatuation with the original artwork, because there were a lot of details like that, and a lot of stuff where, like I said, instead of doing voiceovers, you see the palpable fear that her son might lose her life for Lady Jessica. When he's doing the Kwisatz Haderach or whatever it's called.
Knick-knack, paddywhack.
Give a dog a bone.
Kwisatz Haderach.
Yeah, I thought that was fantastic. I thought, the Harkonnens are really fleshed out in interesting ways, where they're not just a bunch of, homoerotic evil gingers. They're actually like a race which is known for being able to extract the most spice because they're cruel. And it's not just they're cruel, it's they're cruel for efficiency's sake. And again, something that just does not come across. They just come across as kind of comic book villains in the 84 version.
What's his face?
Stellan Skarsgård.
Who was Drax?
Oh, Dave Bautista?
Dave Bautista being typecast as sci-fi bald dudes.
Yeah, he's got to grow some hair.
He's very effective at being bald in the future. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Bald
he's very good at being
muscular.
Bald in space. Yeah, bald and muscular in space. He's like, I know a guy.
Hey, if you want someone who looks a little less ethnic and costs way less than The Rock, I'm your guy.
Or Jason Momoa, probably. Yeah.
No, because Jason Momoa won't cut that hair. He won't do it. Can I tell you when I knew I was hooked by this movie?
Sure.
So I was watching it the other day, and I was sitting there, and all of the sudden the Caladins, the Atreides, are going through this giant ship in order to get to Arrakis. And I looked at the giant ship, and I realized that the giant ship, because this is the transportation guild or whatever. This is
Right.
what they do. They use spice to be able to create like time vortices and pass through space and time much quicker than should be possible. But the ship, instead of just being like a ring device like in Halo or whatever, like they actually made it look kind of like a worm. And the shot, when you're looking through all the ships coming out, behind it you can see the crescent of Caladan. And I just thought that was the coolest fucking thing, because the spaceship looks like the fucking worms that make the spice,
Right.
and you can see through it in a transformational way, like spice is transformational. Like, I was just like, oh, they're using spaceship design to further enhance both the plot and like ideas of the film. And
I
I literally
yeah.
was like out loud to myself, like, oh, that's fucking cool.
I loved the spaceship design. That was something that I grabbed onto very early on as well. I love, like, this is such a different IP than like Star Trek,
Mhm.
where the idea is to try and make everything feel like it could be realistic, to be based in some kind of hard science. There's no concerns in Dune because it's supposed to be kind of mystical. So I'm glad they absolutely went in a direction where the spaceships are like fantastic in a very classical sense of the term.
Yeah, there's almost sort of like a 1930s Art Deco aspect to
I,
some of the ships, because
I think you're right.
they look
Yeah.
like zeppelins, that like they look like spaceships, and then when they get closer to the ground in some scenes, like these balloons just expand, and all of a sudden they're dirigibles somehow. Like, where did all that gas come from? Shouldn't they be just as light as they were before? But it doesn't matter, because we're in a world
Yeah.
with spice.
At the same time, too, I think, like, I need to go back. We could even watch this one while we're waiting for Dune 2. Uh Electric Boogaloo. Uh that the aesthetic of Dune and Erskine, the capital city, were, I think, borrowing elements from like Lawrence of Arabia
Yeah.
and like other classic desert movies. So I think that on one hand, creating this sort of weirdness and separation, on the other hand, drawing on a cinematographic history of like desert and film to really make some of these like really inhospitable spaces feel familiar was a really interesting way to go.
Yeah, I really liked how sparse uh both Arrakis and the Harkonnen home planet were. I feel like that made sense. The Harkonnens feel like a people who would be driven not by uh pleasure seeking items or frills, but would be very cold and calculating, and everything would be very sparse. Them having just been the leaders on Arrakis, that then takes over. Also, the planet is very sparse, so you're using the interior spaces to reflect the outside of the planet that you're on. I get that. The one problem I had was like, they were doing some cool stuff on Caladan. I thought it was a really cool idea that Timothy Chalamet's grandfather was a bullfighter. I think there's
Oh yeah.
something about that which like talks about a culture that um where a leader can do something like bullfighting, where he is willing to risk himself, for what would, if it's anything like Spain's tradition, for what is considered uh, a historic sort of art of the people, that sort of unifies um, the culture of maybe this planet, where it's like,
Right.
some of our poorest can be bullfighters, and we have this great leader who's a bullfighter, and everything that sort of communicated to me was like this rich culture with in because of a leader taking part in this sort of cultural event, good leadership. It spoke to a people and their leaders who it felt very agrarian, but also the history of bullfighting is like, it's animal cruelty. It's not the greatest thing in the world. And so there's also like this part of their culture which is like they're not perfect. They may be egalitarian, but they still have a streak of imperfection. And I think that, from what I've heard in the books, is that's kind of part of the reason that you expect the downfall of Duke Leto is because he is a flawed character and he does make mistakes. And that's part of the reason that he ends up dying is because, while a good man, he is flawed.
Absolutely. And there is that, I think there is that depth in some of the characterization in the books. One thing that I found distracting in this movie was how much Timothée Chalamet looks like Nancy from Stranger Things. Go look at a picture of Nancy right now.
Yeah.
They look like the same.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can picture Nancy in my head, and yeah, you're not wrong.
Like, fear is the mind killer, Barb.
Things that distracted you. Things that
right? I'm right, aren't
Barb, fear is the mind killer. Go sit in the pool and die. No, one thing that distracted me was Timothée Chalamet and his mom.
Oh yeah.
Do not.
Are they going to watch each other change? And even the movie was like, are we going to make you watch them watch each other change? Maybe we're not.
That was a weirdly sexually charged moment, and I was like, "What's that about?" Film.
The movie was so self-aware. Like, are we going to do it? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to stop us?
Is going to take off his clothes. Is his mom going to stare at him and then start jilling off? Like, I was like, "What is happening? Is this? Did we turn on the '84 Dune for a second? What's happening here?" I thought that scene was super awkward, but I think that scene is accentuated in its super awkwardness in that whoever was playing Lady Jessica,
she was fine. You found her,
Rebecca Ferguson.
Okay.
I do not think she was far enough in age from Timothée Chalamet, because even from the initial pictures of Dune, I was like, oh, it's Paul and Chani, and then it's like, that's his mom, and I was like, what? Then why are they the same age? And granted, in the movie, she does appear to be, I don't know, 10 years older than him, but not much more than that. And
how old is Timothée Chalamet supposed to be? Like in the book, Paul's like, he's 12.
Yeah, he's really young. I think in this movie, just based on the movie, I would say he's roughly 18, 16 to 20.
I'll take 16 to 20. Sure.
Just from watching the movie, it seems like he's in that age range. Now, Rebecca Ferguson is actually 38, and Timothée Chalamet is actually 25. So she would have had Timothée Chalamet at 13. And I'm just saying,
universe that's different, really different.
That was too close of an age gap for me visually. And then to have that scene where they're like, are they going to fuck? Like, I was very uncomfortable because that came out of left field.
Like I said, because the whole tone of the movie was like, we're going to be weird. I was like, yeah, you are.
You're going to be dirty weird. Too, aren't you? You got sand everywhere. Yeah, I thought a lot of the technology was super cool. I thought the little mouse guy was super cute.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Just those little asides.
But yeah, no, like the little sand mover, like magic wand thing that they have that no one bothers to tell Josh Brolin's character what it is. He's like, what even is that? And they're like, he doesn't know, what a loser. And he's like, seriously, no one fucking told me. What is that thing? Like, I'm about to go like fight and maybe die. Like, could somebody tell me about the cool technology you just figured out?
Nah.
But Duncan Idaho's an asshole. So, um, no, I thought that was cool. I thought the tent underground was cool, and I thought the fact that Timothy Chalamet's, Paul Atreides, like trips and hallucinations were often true but not accurate.
Yes.
I thought that was really interesting. Like,
Yeah.
he would like meet people in his premonitions and then meet them under wildly different contexts. And I got this during the film, specifically with this one, where he meets the dark-skinned Fremen, who I don't know who that actor was, but he meets him in his dream and he says, I'm going to show you the way of my people, follow me and I'll help you out. And then they have to fight to the death. And that's the way he ingratiates him into the people and shows him the Fremen culture. Like, that was, I was watching this movie and I was like, I'm so glad this is good, because it looks very nice, but also someone took a lot of thought and like really did a good job with this, instead of being like, David Lynch being like, take my name off the fucking movie.
Yeah, no, I mean, in it was a really effective and rare deviation from the books, where the visions in the books are kind of limited to like Chani and being like the Messiah.
Yeah.
So, but they kind of extend that a little bit in the movies, and I think really effectively, like you said, in ways where you're anticipating these things happening and you're able to recognize people from these visions, but the way things play out in real life is different. So it was a really great way to translate the books into something that is much more exciting on film, I think. So yeah, I thought that was a great choice, and also like a great way to honor and expand on some of the source material.
Yeah, like I said, I just keep espousing praise, so it should not come as any surprise that I would recommend this film to anyone who is looking for something to watch. It is long, especially having watched Dune 84 last week and then watching this, having that movie be 2 hours and 15 minutes and be the full book. And this is, from what I hear, a third to half of the book. And
Yes,
it's even longer than that other movie. There were some scenes where I was like, yeah, I've seen the other one. Let's go.
This is why Jodorowsky needed 9 hours.
Yeah.
He was absolutely right on. One thing about this too that I can recommend is if you watch this movie, it's, at least in terms of major and most minor plot details, you could talk to somebody about the first part of the book and be talking about the same things.
And that's,
no one would get tripped up.
Again, that's something Peter Jackson was able to accomplish with Lord of the Rings. And
yeah,
that's what people strive for in these film adaptations. Yeah. But it's just such a thin, wire walk. And yeah, I thought it was, and this movie made me want to read the books. Dune 1984 did not make me want to read the books. I was like, I think I get it. I'm good. But this actually got me excited, because people like you who are fans of the books, listening to them over the last couple of days talk about the stuff that they love and the stuff that they were like, man, I wish it also had this. Like, I get it. It'd have to be a 3-hour movie if it just added this. But man, I wish they would add this. Or I wish they would extend the scene where Duke Leto's at the Harkonnens. There's all that stuff where it's like, or people complaining like, Lady Jessica's pretty cool, but like, she's even more of a badass in the book. And it's like, that's all right. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this to me, it gets 2 thumbs way the fuck up from me. And definitely go see it if you haven't yet. And yeah, I mean, we've kind of spoiled some stuff, but we also talked about Dune 1984 last week. So that's the entire fucking book. So, yeah, I mean, beautiful intelligently done, faithful to the original work. I don't know what else you could be looking more for. How about you?
No.
Full recommendation?
Yeah, like I said, there are a handful of things that are different from the book, but this was like such a great adaptation. It is the same celebration of the source material, like you said, that Lord of the Rings was. So yeah, while there are things I might have liked to see in there, I'm really satisfied with how this realizes the like world of Dune in all of the novels. I think it was great.
Would you
I'm
say
abs-
it's the dream of Dune? Isn't that one of the sequels?
yeah, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious about the second one. I think to make it like in the book, there's a time skip. I think they should wait like 7 years and then film the second one. I mean, they won't do it that
They're
way,
not gonna
but I
do
think it would be awesome if they did.
But they did announce, I believe on Tuesday,
Yeah.
that they're going to, Legendary announced that they're going to film a second one, and it sounds like everybody's willing to come back, and everybody had a good time making the last one.
I'm sure.
So
I'm sure everyone's down to cash in on Dune 2.
Oh yeah. And so, yeah, they are saying tentative release date October 2023. So 2 years, not quite the 7 you're hoping for, but could be a while before we jump back to Arrakis.
I bet you that Dune 2 will come out before an Avatar movie.
Oh, 100%, because an Avatar movie is never going to come out. We're done with those. As a society, I know one guy who's still like, hey, let's do more of these. And everyone else is like, all right, if you fucking pay us. Now, Timothy Chalamet, he's going to be like, let's do the Dune. I don't even care about price tag. All right, Mike. Well, that does it for our conversation about Denis Villeneuve's 2021 Dune.
Well done.
Let's take a little break here, and we'll talk more when we get back. Next week on Subject to Blackout. In preparation for the upcoming release of Netflix's live-action reimagining of Cowboy Bebop, Mike has decided that he will be curating several episodes of the original Cowboy Bebop anime series in order to help introduce both me and you, listener, into what is one of his favorite animated series of all time. For those of you unfamiliar with the anime original, Cowboy Bebop was a late 90s Japanese science fiction series with heavy influences from both Western and noir films. Not only was the series critically acclaimed and award-winning, but its music, composed by Yoko Kanno, is legendary for its eclectic composition using Western, operatic, and jazz influences. While Kanno returns as composer of the series, the new Netflix live-action version will star John Cho as the lead, Spike Spiegel. So, join us next week as we dive into the anime series before the November 19th release of the live-action series on Netflix. All right, Mike, in the world of pop culture, I have been excited for some time, and I've been expressing my interest and my excitement about this to you, and that is Tim Rogers' review of Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, so how long was it? You told me about this yesterday. Okay, hang on a second. You told me about it yesterday at like 8 p.m. It's been 22 hours since you told me about it. How long is it?
Altogether, it is over 10 hours long.
How much of it have you watched so far?
I have consumed...
That's 5 for everybody keeping track. That's about 5 Dunes. It's like 4 or 5 Dunes.
It's like 4 Dunes. I have watched an hour and a half, and an hour.
Yeah. So have you gotten past the loading screen yet and into the actual game? Or are we still...
No, we're still deciding whether or not this avatar has a cock or not.
Sure. Yeah.
No.
Circumcised or not? I don't know.
So when he...
Will it affect my choice branches?
It will. It will, actually. No, so the reason I love Tim Rogers' work is it is novel length reviews of films, and he started his own, he used to work for Kotaku.com, which was a Geo Media website that focuses on games and gaming. And he would do reviews on there pretty famously for like Red Dead Redemption, done a bunch of other stuff, a lot of video essays and stuff like that. And they'd be like hour long affairs. And he, Geo Media was the company that owned Deadspin. And Deadspin obviously had a falling out 2 years ago where their entire staff quit because of poor management. And so around that time, a bunch of the leading content creators of the other Geo Media companies like Kotaku.com decided in solidarity to leave the company. And what Tim Rogers did was create his own YouTube channel, Action Button.
Mm-hmm.
And he decided to do even longer form reviews for video games. And he planned his first season to start off with the Final Fantasy VII remake and to end it with the Cyberpunk 2077 remake.
Sure.
And the videos kept getting more elaborate, and he is an excellent writer. And that's why I keep coming back to him, because every word could have a fucking punchline in it. You have to be paying attention. They're in detail. Like, he's worked in the gaming industry. He's been a professional critic. And he's just the perfect person to do this. So, he releases his first film. It's 2 hours or whatever. He also reviewed Dune and Pac-Man during this first season. And a game called Tokimeki Memorial. All those several hour-long films, he says he has them broken up into chunks. He says don't watch them all in one sitting. Just, watch a half hour here, and then that segment will end, whatever. So 2077, the game came out in December of last year. So there has been much anticipation for this next review, especially because the game was so polarizing with its catastrophic failure at launch.
Oops. Yes.
Yeah. And so this particular review, he also had been trying to release it for weeks and been having issues with the video encoding on YouTube. So there are people who were saying, like, there's no video. He's lying. There's no video. So he went on Twitch yesterday and was like, guys, there's no video. And he's like, I'm sorry. I tried to come up with a video, but I couldn't. And then, like, he just kind of smiles at one point and he goes, all right, I think all those idiots should be gone by now to go flame me on Twitter. He's like, the video's 10 hours long. And I was just like, fuck yeah. But what he did was he made a video in 8 parts. He will say 7 because the first part is part 0. It's the introduction to how to watch the next 7 parts.
Oh my God. All right.
And it's an hour long and it's delightful to watch. And I'd highly recommend it. But what he wanted you to do was experience his review in the same way you would experience a game like Cyberpunk 2077, where you make decisions and you get certain storylines and then you get an ending.
I'm already not interested.
So part 0 introduces the film and his basic thoughts. Parts 1 through 6, you're supposed to watch 2 of them. Pick any 2. Just watch 2 of them.
Sure.
And then watch the finale, which summarizes his thoughts and will, put a capstone on the thing. So I have watched part 1, and I'm halfway through part 6. And I watched the intro last night on Twitch. So I'm going to finish 6, and then I'll watch the end cap version. So I won't watch all 10 hours, and I'm doing it over 2 days because I could not stay awake last night for the entire 2.5 hours that I was gonna try to put myself through. So far it's amazing and thoughtful and delightful and funny as fuck, and really enjoying it. But at some point I will get bored and have nothing to watch, and I will go back and watch every other aspect of this video. I love his shit. He was part of the reason that I wanted to do content creation and why this podcast exists, is because while I could never do what he does to the level that he does it, it was inspiring to see someone just kind of do something on their own and really kind of get a bunch of support and kick ass doing it. So yeah, if you are a glutton for really well written, really funny game reviews, yeah, Tim Rogers, Action Button, YouTube, go check him out.
This all sounds like a cry for help, but
It may
fair
be.
enough.
It may be, and I don't know who's crying. Me, him, both of us. Yeah,
Could be. Yeah,
I
everybody. I think everybody.
that's fair.
Yeah.
He also promised that a video would never be 10 hours long again.
Nice. We'll see.
Which is good.
We're still waiting for Cyberpunk DLC too. That hasn't even happened yet.
Correct.
Yeah. Which was supposed to happen already, but whatever.
There were like things that they added to the game on that big like update, which I don't remember when was that in May or something.
Yeah, but it wasn't anything that was so significant
it was
that
like,
would be worth.
Here's a new leather jacket, and you're like, God, this game sucks.
Yeah.
But like he points out, like he's like, yeah, the game isn't perfect and it's flawed, but also it's pretty cool in spots. And he's right there. Like it is pretty cool when you can just like open up your arm and explode somebody. Like, that's pretty baller.
I mean, the problem with Cyberpunk, and this was also the reason why I wasn't sure how to approach Dune, is because like hype machines are such a real thing.
Yeah.
That you're not sure how to experience and interpret something divorced from its like massive hype machine. Like Cyberpunk will never be able to actually spend time with on its own because we spent like years being hyped by CDPR.
Well, and one of the things that he covers in the first segment of his review is he talks about the Keanu of it all.
Yes.
And how when they brought out Keanu at the Xbox event that he was announced he was in the game, he like made this big gesture and pointed up to a release date of April 16th, 2020. And I guess before that instant, that was the working release date at CD Projekt Red. But everyone inside CD Projekt Red thought it was just an internal joke. Like, oh yeah, nope, we're still going to hit that mark. Because they were like, there's no fucking way we can do it in April. And I mean, the game got bumped back several times until it finally got released in December. But yeah, like the moment Keanu Reeves pointed to April 16th, they were all like, wait, management is serious? Mm-hmm. And like, that was the moment a lot of people apparently were like, in this great moment for management where they announced Keanu Reeves, everybody else found out they were being run by idiots. And that's a bad dynamic for management to think today's a great day when actually your employees think today's the worst day we've had ever.
I really want to hear what Keanu has to say about all of this. I feel like Keanu never weighed in after. Do you think Keanu has an Xbox? Do you think he has an Xbox or a PlayStation? What do you think his vibe is? I think he has.
If he were a video gamer, he would have a PlayStation. I think that's the normie kind of like, I like video games thing. Like I could see him playing Uncharted and being like, yo, Nathan Drake's pretty cool. I could play his dad.
Whoa.
He knows Kung Fu too. But if I don't think he's a gamer, I think he's too old. He's in his mid-50s.
What do you think he does all day?
I think he shoots guns.
Shoots guns. Yeah, that's true. Just shoots dudes in the face.
And practices jiu-jitsu.
Gunfu.
I think if he owns an Xbox, it is because it was given to him.
Maybe.
And I think that my best guess is that he does have an Xbox, and that is the only game system in his house, and it's because someone gave it to him.
Maybe.
And I think that's it. I do not see Keanu also coming out and talking about like, Project Red really fucked that one up, didn't they, guys? Because like, he's too nice. There's videos of him on the subway just being like, hey, you're a lady, you want to take my seat even though I'm 55? Like, he's just a really nice guy. that was one of the other things from the review. Is apparently the theme of the season for Tim Rogers was authenticity, and he described Keanu as authenticity, the man. And I think that's fair. You don't get a different character. You get versions of Keanu when Keanu is in your movies. That's even true. When he's supposed to be playing an Englishman.
Yeah.
Very good, sir.
I'm sorry to offend you. You just get versions of Keanu because he's too authentic to be able to delve into somebody else's mind. He can only be Keanu, and that's
Keanu's real. Yeah, I don't blame him. I don't blame him for Cyberpunk. He's okay.
He's innocent. The boy is blameless. Punish me.
I'm gonna be so bummed if he ever gets canceled.
What's he gonna get canceled for? Being too polite?
Maybe. We don't know. These things can go in odd directions. We don't know.
No one's ever really canceled. Bill Cosby got out of jail. No one's ever really canceled.
Well, he doesn't get any of his honorary degrees back.
Oh, no, not the honorary degrees. What will he do? I think he would go back to prison if he could get that degree from Temple back. I think
one of the universities didn't rescind it. They were like, well, we don't rescind honorary.
It's probably something like Jerry Falwell U or like American or one
of
those.
It was like Harvard because rescinding it would be like the admittance of like a mistake. And it's like, shut the fuck up, chill out, Jesus fucking Christ.
Just
it was like an Ivy League. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, Harvard or Yale. That sounds like something Harvard would do.
Yeah.
Our prestigious honors are too prestigious to even be taken back.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, everyone hates you.
Suck it.
All right, Mike. Well, that's Tim O'Brien's review and Tim Rogers' review of Cyberpunk 2077.
Great.
Have you been consuming any other media?
I watched all of season 2 of The Babysitter's Club.
Ooh.
Which is pretty much the greatest show on Netflix.
So you say.
It's like imagine if Foundation wasn't a pile of shit. Imagine.
Have you watched even a third episode of Foundation?
No.
Okay.
I get it.
All right.
Imagine if in Foundation, instead of deviating to talk about random crap from the point of the books, they just had a Babysitter's Club. It would be like the Babysitter's Club.
You are a big fan of the series, not ironically.
I think it's great. I think it's super well written. Alicia Silverstone's in it. Child actors are very, very effective. It's very, like I said, much more well written than like a lot of the junk that ends up, like there's no Netflix bloat. It's like really precise, really efficiently narrated. It's great. Love it.
Well, you're currently curating our next episodes, series of episodes that we're going to be watching from the anime version of Cowboy Bebop.
Right. So the only existing version for only like 2 or 3 more weeks.
So maybe some point in the future, if we're looking for something and we don't have any ideas, you can curate some Babysitter's Club for me to
totally
to try
the
to
one
hook me
where
into the
Stacy
series.
Gets diagnosed with diabetes. It's like super real. We'll totally watch that one.
All right, Mike. Anything else from you?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, I think that does it for this week. For those of you listening along, you can head over to subjecttoblackout.com where you can reach out to us, or you can find links to all of our socials, including Instagram, Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also feel free to rate, review, and subscribe. And lastly, you can find Mike on Instagram and Twitter at the Name Taken Podcast. Mike, may Dune be with you.
Here's the Mind Killer.
And with your spirit.